So you know my friend in Austin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she recently got a cat whose name is
Aw.
Nugget.
Nugget.
She got him this little backpack that has a view window so that she can take him around.
Aw.
And she recently started leash training him.
Is he doing a good job?
Yes, apparently he loves it. She needs a retractable one so that she's not constantly having to run after him.
That's awesome. And we are live.
Super
Welcome,
stoked.
super stoked. Welcome, you guys, to You Heard. We are super excited to talk with you today. Oh, I'm just lurking. I have Gatorade for those electrolytes. It's not a sponsor, but if Gatorade would like to sponsor me, we're all good.
I got a Capri Sun.
Love it. Uh, we
So,
We are super excited to talk with you guys today. So, special episode of You Heard. We're continuing on with our book club with myself. No, this is NJ and Puzzled Scarlet. So, the book that we're going to be talking about today is called The Nightbird by Brian Freeman. But before we get into that, Keelan, do you have anything that you wanted to tell our listeners/viewers?
pertaining to the official millennials?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, um, well, every week, we have our naked pod and our boys that do Circle of Jerks. But next week, we'll be adding to that lineup. Thursday night in our Discord, we will be having our first watch party.
What? Bum, 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 bum.
I'm so excited. It's next week. Yeah, the 19th. So it'll be the 19th at 7 o'clock. We will be watching the cult classic Labyrinth with David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly. I'm super stoked.
I'm super stoked too. I think it's going to be amazing. And I know some people have not seen Labyrinth yet, and I'm excited for them to get the experience.
Thank you, official millennials, for throwing that in the chat, Norma.
Uh,
Yeah, no, I'm super excited, and I actually did a little bit of research because I saw we were talking about earlier this week. Geekers mentioned Toby, the little boy who plays Toby in the movie, has grown up to be the Goblin King on stage, and I think I figured out what happened there. So he actually became a puppeteer, like the puppets they use in the movies.
oh, wow.
I want to say he worked on the new Dark Crystal, and he has just made a name for himself in production design.
That is crazy. I've seen the memes that you've added into the Watch Party channel on Discord, and I'm pretty excited to watch the movie because I haven't seen that movie since I was like 6. So it's going to be like a new experience for me to watch it. I don't
I
remember
love
really.
it.
I don't remember any
But I
of
mean,
it.
coming back to something that you've seen before, that's always like, I don't know, it's invigorating. Like, it's awesome.
I would agree. It's kind of like rereading books. So, like, you and I are readers. I mean, you more so than I. I mean, the books that you go through, like, on a yearly basis is nuts. And it's super admirable. She has like a list, guys, of the books that she read with the dates that she read them. Like, she's a super bookworm, and I love it. She's a librarian at heart. I can't wait until you're in that job. But, having rereading books and from a child to adolescents to adults, it just hits different. I don't know how to describe it. Like when a book gets fat, right? After a time, you reread it, and the pages get bigger. I remember reading in Inkheart, the author put it in such a beautiful way. You leave memories in those places, right? In those pages, because it means something different for you as you grow older. And revisiting books or movies like that, it reminds me of that one quote. Um,
Yeah.
like,
That's so true because growing up, as the Harry Potter books came out, I always had to have the new one. And I just remember either staying up late to read it and finish it, or I think it was probably Goblet of Fire. All I can really picture is me reading it in my clear plastic bubble chair.
oh my
Do you
God.
remember?
Oh my God. I just got so excited and I just smelled plastic. Like, if you are a 90s baby or even an 80s baby, you probably had inflatable furniture right along with your clear phone line.
Forgot the clear one. I had a purple one though. I did. I had a purple
Shut
phone.
up. You had a purple one? I had a purple one. But it wasn't my personal line. I wish it
No,
was.
never had a personal line. It was my phone though.
You guys have no idea how good you got it with your cell phones and your Snapchat. I sound like a boomer.
Right, and your TikTok.
Going back to books, though, so the book that we picked this month was The Nightbird by Brian Freeman. And I had read it previously because I love murder mysteries. Like, it is probably one of my favorite things to read. Um, and he just did such a really good job, I think, overall. So, a little bit about the book. Chat, you guys, I know that you guys have read it or listened to it via audio, so just hang in there with me and we'll open up discussion topics soon. But so the Nightbird tells the tale of this one psychiatrist. Her name is Frankie Stein, who manipulates the memories of her patients to replace them with something else or erase them so they can get through their trauma or work through it. So I mean, of course, the allusion to Frankenstein and messing around in people's heads is there, but it doesn't really. It's a story about her, but it's not about her. It's more so about Frost Easton. Frost Easton is this homicide detective that is looking into the murders of these girls. The murderer is actually using these tactics that Dr. Stein did to make these girls think that they are about to go, or they're facing their worst fear.
Mhm. That their worst fear is either attacking them in the vicinity or coming for them.
hmm And they're killing themselves. So yeah, book opens up with this girl. Her name's Lucy, and her friend's described as this like really carefree girl who's singing and swaying in the car, getting honks from other people while they're on this bridge. And Lucy, her friend, is just so scared because she's scared of being on bridges, which is crazy because the book is set in San Francisco, which there's like bridges everywhere. Um, well, the friend ends up freaking out. She tears out of the car and literally flings herself off the bridge. Um, then enters Frost Easton. What happened? What clues can he find? Hey, Scary. Yes, Scary Eyes 2020. All right, Keelan, do you want to pick up like the rest, a little bit about the rest, next part?
We meet Frost, and I just think it's so funny how the author describes him throughout the entire book. He's this Justin Timberlake looking guy with this very not gruff, but a little bit more gruff, like gruff demeanor, but not as gruff. But he's also caring. So when he meets Lucy, he doesn't just see, this girl who lost her friend. He sees somebody sweet, and he tries to help her. And I think that was really nice because of her fear of bridges. Um, she ends up not being able to move after her friend goes. Um, okay, that's weird. Sorry. Anyways, um, and it's really as we get to know him, we see how he views Lucy, and not really as a witness in a homicide case, but he does come to view her like a little sister. And you don't really see that a lot in homicide, cases. Usually they just want to get rid of their not rid of, but get rid of their witness and go about looking for him. But he grows to care about Lucy, and I just think that's really sweet.
I think it's really sweet too. I think I've read the entirety of the Frost Easton series, so there's two more books after The Nightbird, Crooked Street and A Voice Inside, and it tells Frost's story a little bit more. Um, but yeah, you're right. He totally is caring, and he mentions his sister Katie, and that she reminds him of that. And Katie was unfortunately murdered years prior, and that's actually what inspired Frost to become a detective. Um, so that I thought that was really interesting. So before when her friend had jumped off the bridge, a lot of people were like, it was a suicide. This girl, that jumped off the bridge, never took drugs, never, partied at all. She had a boyfriend. She was young. Life was just really starting for her. And Frost ended up connecting the pieces that her case matched very similar to another incident that happened with a woman named Marilyn Summers. She was at a wedding. And she just ended up pulling out a gun and shooting herself in the head. And it was a complete mystery why she had done that.
Because both of these girls, they're just going throughout their day. They're having fun. They're at a wedding. They're singing in a car, and then out of nowhere, they do a complete 360. They have these psychotic breaks. They see something that's not there. They hear something. They believe something that's not there, and so they do whatever is in their power to end their life, and that's scary.
It is.
Like,
Yeah, for sure. Can you imagine being so scared of something that that is your only solution? Like, that's a torture I can never dream up of.
Um, and so Frost ends up putting the connection together because Lucy does mention, not Lucy, her Lucy's friend's boyfriend ends up talking to Frost, and he's a lawyer. And Frost has asked him if he has seen anything recently that seems off. And the only thing he could come up with was cats. And basically that led to the boyfriend telling Frost how um, she had just started seeing a new psychiatrist. And so enters Miss Frankie Stein.
Yes. So she was like renowned in her field in the book. A lot of people were like, wow, that's amazing. But I would say more people were really put off by that. Like, who are you to play guide? This isn't right. You need to help people through their trauma, not help them forget. And it turned out being the connection was is Meryl Summers, the first girl who had passed away, she had also seen Frankie, Dr. Stein. The girl who jumped off the bridge, she had also seen Dr. Stein for her fear of cats. Her boyfriend had a cat, and she was like terrified of it 'cause she had an incident when she was younger. He had four. Oh my gosh, yes. How can you remember that?
Yes.
Four cats. Yes. And then Lucy was scared of bridges, so she was had suggested her to go and get this treatment. So, there was a lot of different factors at play. Like, who could it be? So, enter Darren Newman.
Dun
Darren,
dun dun.
seriously, what a villain. I mean,
Oh my
just
god.
just an asshole. Like, just a terrible person. So Darren ends up he's this rich boy who has had his parents throw money at problems, doesn't ever take responsibility for anything ever. And he ends up using Frankie as a way to work through his trauma. And it was all a lie. It was an elaborate ruse. Fuck Newman. Newman did it. Peach, you gotta finish the book first.
I mean, yes, Newman did it, but um, and that was the thing about Newman is while reading it and learning about him and Frankie. So the way that him and Frankie are introduced to each other is he lived in the building with a woman that both she and other residents had noticed um, his attention towards her. And she constantly denied him because she was engaged. She was in her senior year of college, I think. She was in an older college. Um, but everybody knew his advancements towards her. So when her homicide had been called in, her murder, um, of course, first eyes went to Newman.
He lived right
And
down the street from her, a couple doors down, right?
mhm, he, yeah, same apartment building. Um, that was the one that got him to Frankie, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. But he ended up not getting charged with it because they did find DNA evidence on the scene, and that was of another residence in the exact same apartment building. But since people had been looking into him, Frankie, who was very proud of the work that she was able to do, she thought that she could take him on as a challenge. And so instead of getting charged or looking into him further, the courts deferred him that therapy would be better suited for him than jail time.
I don't think it was
Yes.
Newman's roommate, Peach. I think it I think it was another
Mm-mm.
because Lewis, that man who the DNA had come from, that would have been an easy connection to Darren.
Yeah.
Again, I'm a
Yeah.
speed
No.
reader and I missed some details.
No, he wasn't Darren's roommate, but he did live in the same apartment building. Um, and the only thing he could remember of the incident was just that he had a couple of beers and he guessed he blacked out, and he ended up basically saying that he did it, even though he had no real memory of it.
Yep. So let's
So this is how. Oh, go ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say, like, let's pause here and ask the chat. What do you guys, at this point in the book, when you're first introduced to Darren, what did you think about him? Like, did you automatically like, this is the guy, he's totally sus? Or did you maybe say, like, it seems too convenient? What did you think, Keelan?
I definitely thought he was too convenient. Um, because not to be like that, but most mysteries, they kind of put a spotlight on one person. They're like, hey, this is your guy. They're like, I'm going to distract you over here while the real one's over here. So that's kind of how I felt with Newman. And so his activities later in the book definitely messed with my head somewhat.
So Peach says Newman is sus, throw him out. Jbot says, I knew he wasn't the guy who committed the suicide murders because even if he had killed the first girl, it didn't fit the rest of the crimes. Okay. Uh,
Ooh, good observation, J-Bot.
seriously. Crazy. He got away with his, but she helped him. Frankie
Frankie
helped
helped
him?
him.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That would have been quite the twist, for sure.
but I don't think he would have gotten away with it if Frankie didn't contain the little bit of hubris that she does.
I
That's
agree.
how you pronounce that, right?
Well, I think too that she had shown that she'd taken her profession very seriously. Like she refused to breach contract, and we'll get to that in a second. But she took her job seriously. She thought what she did was actually helping people. Um, as for Frankie as a person, I didn't really care for her character. Like, I guess it's because of how I don't know, I like what she did for a living, like, maybe I personally didn't agree with it, but she was also very cold too. Um, but look at her family and her relationships. Her dad had passed away, was it a year before?
4 months.
4 months before, and her husband is this other guy who's a scientist, and he's a cold, calculating shitbag too. Her sister, who is just a train wreck, had moved in with her. Her name's Pam. Ugh,
Fucking sister.
Pam. Chat, put it in the chat. Did you guys hate Pam more or Jason more? Let us know.
I thought it was really cool that she and Jason worked in the same field, just in different components of it. So he was also a scientist, but he also worked with memory, but he more worked on the um, brain chemistry of it, the actual like fires, electrons, and all of that. When did her mom die of cancer?
I think it was when she was younger. J-Bot confirmed for
Thought,
us. Uh,
oh, it was because she was younger. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I remember her monologue about her dad was not equipped to raise
mm,
children, much less female children.
mhm. So she keeps having this, talking about her family dynamic. She keeps having this memory of the hike where her dad had passed away. So they went on a camping trip and they were taking a hike. And from what she remembers, he jumped off a cliff. And before that moment, she remembers him just asking questions, like psychological questions. Question, is it moral to do something at the risk of somebody else's life? Is it right to do something, blah, 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 blah. And just keeps firing questions at her. And every time she thinks about it, she gets so angry. Like, why is he asking me this?
And
Yeah.
the questions weren't completely out of behavior for him. It was just the nature of the questions. Because they had the yearly New Year's Eve hike or New Year's Day hike. And he would always question both of them. And then that was another weird thing about this particular hike was that Pam did not go with them. And I think Frankie felt a little guilty because she knew that, their dad always kind of picked on Pam a little bit more, always just a little bit harder, because she wasn't a scientist or doing anything that he believed was noteworthy with her life.
Yeah, she didn't. And that had to be tough for Pam, like just giving a little bit of compassion to her, not fitting in a mold or being somebody's expectation, but she was a hot mess. And it was interesting is that, he was in the same similar field that Frankie was in, and he couldn't give her the help that she needed. Can you imagine like the trauma that she experienced as a child, her mother dying very young and not kind of feeling like an alien in your own family? So like giving some compassion for Pam. Um, but J-Bot, I agree. I did hate Pam more. Jason was a sleazeball, but Pam, that's your sister, man. We'll get to that in a
Yeah.
minute. Um,
So once we meet Pam and Jason, we kind of realize there is this weird dynamic. Um, but then, Frost starts digging in deeper, talking to Lucy a little bit more. He starts talking to Frankie. And unfortunately, she won't tell him anything until, she has her disclosures from the family. But then she's approached by somebody who should have, I think, she should have told Frost about.
Todd Ferris. So Todd Ferris actually wasn't really a patient of hers. I think he had come for a consultation, and he was some guy that apparently worked in tech, and he had some like trauma from when he was a kid. And he came to see her. She went on a run. She was getting these emails from the Nightbird, this serial killer, that's saying like, "Yep, like you can't save them. What you're doing is wrong." Blah 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 blah. And she probably shouldn't have been by herself. Well, this Todd Ferris guy ends up finding her on her run, and he tells her like, "I'm not sure. I can't remember anything." He looks completely disheveled. He ends up giving her a flash drive a couple of chapters later of, the times that he can't remember. Like, he would go days without remembering what happened between there, and he thinks that he's a Nightbird. But at this point, Frankie couldn't say anything because there was no evidence to incriminate him. Like, it was all under confidential agreement.
And he was very adamant about not involving the police, not going to the office, not having anything recorded, not even her taking notes. And what made him think that he was so guilty was because every time the news channel popped up with the girls' faces, he said that he remembered them. And that's really got to be weird, having a memory implanted in you.
Right. Peach, I don't think he was a patient. I think he just had a consultation. I don't think he ever went through, if I remember correctly. So Todd Ferris is kind of like a character in the background, and then you have Darren Newman running around doing whatever he's doing, and he's definitely not a saint, antagonizing Frankie. Frost is trying to put together the pieces. He did, but oh, crazy's typing. And he was just trying to put together the pieces. Oh, okay. Thanks, Shayba. Yeah. I thought he had just gone for a consultation. Um, yeah, he wasn't suggestible. I'm wondering if he had just did like, I don't know, it went through hypnotherapy. So I know that doesn't work for all, but maybe he just didn't want to because of the outcome of the book.
Um, so then we go a little bit further. Frost is still kind of going to see Lucy every now and then, and he's noticing that she's starting to get the little schoolgirl crush on him, but she's trying to be very mature about it. Go her. And she mentions that she wants to go talk to Frankie about her own phobias. Even though Frost doesn't want her to, because he understands that there is a connection with Frankie and he doesn't want Lucy to get up into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. J-Bot, it's so good that you read that book in the span of 24 hours.
Oh my god, go you.
I want to say she started this afternoon. I'm not 100% sure.
And Jay was telling me about that, and I was like, damn. I
She had
love
thought
it.
she had thought she had to the end of the month. But anyway, so yeah, so she wants to go and do this consultation, and in between all that, Frankie ends up realizing that her phone was bugged, her office was bugged, and all of her discussions that she's had with patients have been recorded, etc. So of course, these girls are in the news. It breaks that, it linked to her and her memory. She was already in the news prior for manipulating these memories. And um sorry, I got distracted by the chat. So she's already in the news, so like patients are calling her, freaking out. New patients are canceling their appointments, which by the way, like I would have been like, yeah, nope, don't want to be part of that. Opted out.
Bye.
Bye. But Lucy ends up going to go see her about her fear of bridges. And, of course, the Nightbird, he does his thing and he kidnaps her. And it's so scary. It's really creepy how they describe the guy as Nightbird. He has this creepy smiling mask, and it's just very spooky. It's super spooky.
Mhm.
And all the
Uh,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to describe it. It was a bone white mask with these mesh fly eyes and a wide cherry lipped grin with this black rope hair wig. Just like, even for San Francisco, that's pretty fucking creepy.
It's pretty weird for San Francisco. I agree. So I mean, what did you guys think at this point? Like, you had your you had Lucy going to go get a consultation. You had, then after that, another girl, Christy, she had passed away on a first date, by the way. Like, that was crazy. She
Oh,
ended up
poor girl.
she ended up running out of, the, a bar. She was on a
Or
first date and running into on or jumping off. Did she run into the street or did
no,
she
she just ran into traffic.
she ran
She
into
just
traffic?
ran out
Mhm.
and got hit by a truck. And right minutes, 10 minutes before this is happening, the Nightbird emails Frankie and is like, "Tick tock, you have 10 minutes to save her." And Frankie's like, "Oh, I'm going to blow this off because, I've been told by the security company I've hired to look into him not to respond to anything, not to do anything." And then about 5 minutes goes by and she gets a picture. And it's like it's looking down at the top of the bar. Like somebody put a camera on a ceiling fan and took a picture. And Frankie's like, "I don't really understand," until she sees, you said Kristen's?
Christy.
Christie's, Christie's face. And she's like, "Oh shit." So she starts booking it to the bar to try to save her, and unfortunately gets there in time to witness it.
So this is where the Frost really starts piecing apart, like, what is making these women freak out. And the one thing that he pins on is a song by Carolyn King called "The Nightingale," right?
Nightingale.
Nightingale. So this guy, this Nightbird, he is using this song as some type of like Pavlov thing. Like, if I ring this bell, that means you get a treat. If I play this song, that means your worst fears are going to come alive. um, and it gets pretty scary. It's a trigger, right, Peach? You're totally right. It's a trigger.
Mhm.
So
Um,
I don't know where to go from here. I don't know what I want to talk about.
well, now we're about to get into spoiler territory.
But you guys had plenty of
Um,
time to read the book, so if you don't want spoilers, just mute. Don't leave us. Don't leave us. Just mute.
well, before we get into spoilers, we did get some discussion questions from the author's website. Um, let's see. So, what about personal memory? Um, do you believe that memories can be manipulated? And do you remember things that you aren't sure really happened?
Yeah, I mean, the human mind is so valuable. Like, you can, think you remember a certain detail and it wasn't true at all. It was just kind of like something that you were like, yep, this is it. This is what I thought. But shock has its own things. What do you think, Keelan?
Oh, I definitely think memories can be manipulated. Frankie proved it when she talked to Frost for the first time.
The car.
She shows him,
Mm.
yes, she shows him this 6-second clip of a car going through the road. And every time she asks him a question about it or states a fact, she notices that he doesn't correct her. And all of a sudden, he doesn't even trust his own memory anymore, which is scary because it's something that you just saw this. Um,
Mhm.
and as someone who literally has the worst memory, as crazy, he can attest to that.
I forgot my own
And
age over
apparently
here.
someone
Like,
there are times when I'm like, yes, this thing did happen. Very rarely am I certain about, certain memories. But for the most part, I'm usually just puzzled.
roll credits. Crazy. I love that you put this in the chat. Kazam. It's like the Mandela effect. I have a very vivid memory of that movie, and I have memories of other things. We're not a thing. Um, so yes, this is a great point. Yeah, your memory is not the best. Another question that he had was, let's talk about Frost. Do you guys think that he was wrong to avoid a relationship with Lucy? And do you think he can commit?
Um, so I think I would have to read a few more of the books to really get a grasp on who Frost is. Because the most that we learn in this first book is that he became a homicide detective within the last 5 years, I believe. He did it because his sister Katie was murdered, and my favorite part about Frost is his sidekick, Shaq.
Shaq!
um, and how he acquired his living. But I don't think he was wrong to avoid a relationship with Lucy. I think he probably wasn't ready, especially since she was so much like his sister Katie. Um, and then I think if he found someone who matched him, he could make the commitment. What do you think,
I
chat? What do you think?
Yeah, chat, tell us what you think while we're talking. Um, yeah, I don't think he was wrong to avoid a relationship with her. Like he obviously did he obviously did care for her a lot in that regard, and he even said, "Hey, like she reminds me of my little sister." Um and it was also around the anniversary of his sister's death. So I think he was definitely in his feels. I think like Frost's job is really hard. I mean, he lived a couple of different lives. Um, he had been a lawyer. He drove a taxi around San Francisco for a while, and then he's now a homicide detective. So he definitely wore a couple of different hats for sure.
I'm sorry. I think my screen's frozen, but
It
at least I'm smiling.
I know, you look super cute, by the way.
Oh, thanks. You mean my week old messy bun and the beanie I used to hide it?
You still look cute. Crazy thinks that Lucy was the one. Seriously, how old is Frost? J-Bot, you tell us, because I'm not quite sure how old Frost is. I imagine he's in his, like, late 30s, early 40s.
I was thinking early to mid 30s. Yeah,
35.
yeah. So he was only about 10 years her senior because she was just out of college herself. And he could.
C- Crazy. I would really love you to read the next two books because you really get to know Katie's story, and what happened there, and have a little bit like more understanding. Like when I first read this to you, I was like, "Oh, she's so cute. Oh, she got her feelings hurt." But yeah, you really get to know Frost a lot better. Um, and I think that it was too close to home, like, definitely reminded him of his sister. I mean, like, which is, like, the worst insult, right, a girl could get, like, "Oh, you remind me of my mom or my sister." You don't wanna make that comparison.
Nope, nope, nope.
Do
Especially one that you got your eye on who has a Justin Timberlake looks, which I love that the author kept coming back to that.
J-Bot, what do you think? Do you think that he could have had a relationship with Lucy, or was it good that he put the kibosh on it? What's the next question? Puzzled?
Um, the next pertains to Dr. Stein and what she does, the memory erasures or changes that she does. Because she doesn't exactly erase the memory. She just manipulates it in a way that it's no longer harmful. Um, and so do you think that is something that you could see yourself doing?
Mm-mm. I told this to my mom a couple of weeks ago. She did not think it was funny, by the way. But I said, trauma, if, trauma makes you funny. If I had a normal childhood, I would have nothing to write about. She did not think it was funny. But, I think it's really sad that, some people just find something so debilitating that they can't move on. I can only imagine, like, vets with PTSD, and, luckily, like, I haven't
Mhm.
had a traumatic experience like that happen where it completely debilitates the person that I am. So I feel like I can't really answer that truthfully. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
What do you think? What
And
would you do it?
like I said, I kinda have a bad memory. So, I don't really have anything that I think I would wanna hide or not remember. Um, but I think as far as, like, leaving it up to a populace, I think that's something for every person to decide. There's a couple of choices in life that where it just has to come down to the individual and how they wanna handle it. Um, and if, I because there have to be memories that if you've been able to move on with your life or if you want to move on with your life, that may need to be forgotten.
That's a good point. What about you guys in chat? Would you do it?
See if I
So let's get into spoiler territory now. Puzzle, you may want to like turn off your cam and turn it back on. That may help. Hey, Extreme.
let me close my stream once real quick.
Okay. Extreme, you're just
Oh,
coming. You're coming into spoiler territory. We just gave a whole DL on the book The Nightbird. Okay, Crazy is ready. So let's skip ahead, Puzzled. Let's skip ahead to, I guess, like our thoughts um, about the end of the book. So let's talk about what happened. I don't even know where to start.
um,
There's so many parts to this. So you guys remember
sorry.
us talking about Todd Ferris? It turns out that Todd Ferris was sweethearts with the first girl that was murdered, Marilyn Summers. And she was murdered by Darian Newman. This guy had it all. They had just graduated college, both got really great jobs. He was like a tech whiz already, and they were engaged to be married. And unfortunately, um, they go into, Marilyn is murdered, and he can't move on. He's just obsessed with, trying to find a clue or an answer. Um, and he ends up going for the session with Frankie, and planting bugs in her office, and hatching this crazy scheme. He thinks that she is the reason why Darian got away, which absolutely he did. Sorry, guys. Puzzled, are you
Yeah.
back? Okay. Okay.
Um, and he did. And that was hard, for Todd
He
because
did
this
puzzle.
girl was his high school sweetheart. They were in a choir together, and and it's hard. They stayed together, through college. He was already done. He was just waiting for her to finish for them to get married. And then just, for him in the space of a day and being out of state and his fiance's just gone. So can you imagine the planning he must have gone through to pull this off? So what he does to these girls is this what we're going into?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Okay. So what he does is he has created this white room. Ceilings white, floors white, walls are white, and has nothing but a table. And he uses Frankie's same system of drugging the girls and kind of just basically hypnotizing them.
And playing certain images for them.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of them being their worst fears. See? And I thought it was so smart of him to try to pin it on Darren Newman, because Darren would be, the first person that should come to mind, for, another woman dead. Working over there. Let me get it there. Let me do that. Oh, wait, I gotta do this first. Sorry. And he would have gotten away with it too. Hey!
Hey, you're back.
He would have gotten away with it too, but there was one thing that he did not know about Darren Newman. And that was the one true story that Darren Newman had ever told Frankie while he was in counseling with her. Darren Newman had an aversion to the color white because when he was a young child, he got snowed in, and he was trapped in the snow for hours, and was probably 10 minutes away from dying whenever somebody found and rescued him. So he never wore the color white. His cars were not white. In his house, the walls, the ceiling, there was nothing white. And this is the clue that Frankie realizes that it's Todd.
Yep. So Frost and his partner Jess Saucedo, which if you guys continue the series, please do, because you get to know Jess a little bit more in the next couple books. But they went to go check out, this abandoned building that's full of rubble, and you can tell squatters had been using it. There was traps there, and they get to this room, and there is a cell phone. And it's basically like, you took the bait, and that was it. So Frost goes and he looks down where Frankie's supposed to be sitting in his car and sees her take the F off. Meanwhile, Frankie gets a call from the Nightbird, a video call rather, and she sees Lucy. Lucy was abducted, and she's just like, "Where are you?" He's like, "You're the only one that can save her." And she's like, "Where are you? Where are you?" She's looking around, and she looks up, and she sees like this building, and there's light coming from it, and she just knows. So she tears ass going up to this building, and when she gets up there, she sees Darian Newman on the ground, dead. And then Lucy is holding a knife. Um, totally out of it, not really sure. Frost's partner ends up putting a bullet in her shoulder, and after Frankie and her had like a whole little tackle session, and they think like, okay, good, we got it. They totally thought it was Darian Newman, and then when Frankie makes that realization, no, it wasn't Darian Newman, it's actually Todd Ferris. She goes to meet him where her father passed away, because if you guys remember, there's still two other people in the story, Jason and Pam.
So, real quick before we go into that, by chapter 13, I totally thought it was Jason and Pam going after Frankie, but I didn't know why. And Todd kept hinting to Frankie whenever he called her, or no, he sent her an email. But he kept hinting, don't you want to know what you remember? So at one point, when Frost and Stein are working together, she ends up having kind of a panic attack, but she also ends up having a seizure. Now, she recognizes a seizure as something that one of her patients has had. So she goes to her husband, and the seizure was her mind fighting against a memory being blocked. So she goes to her husband and asks him, "Did you change my memory?" He finally says yes. And the story he tells her is that she had been on the cliff whenever her dad jumped, and that she could not handle, seeing her father, commit suicide. And she's like, okay, that makes some sense, but it doesn't make a lot. But okay, cool. We'll go ahead and go with that. And so now Todd starts hinting, well, don't you want to know what really happened to your father? And has her come to meet him at the same cliff.
So at this point, it's Frankie, Todd Ferris, who's obviously a very deranged, heartbroken, grief-stricken man. And you have Frost and his team, keeping an eye on her. And it was crazy. Like, it was crazy, the whole thing that happened. Frost, oh my gosh, what a hero. So basically, Todd Ferris wants to, like, grab onto Frankie and pull her back with him off this cliff, right? A terribly tragic but ironic end. Thank you for those hypes. And and Frost ends up like coming out from the side and pulling her back, and Todd just like free falls down this cliff. And she scrambles to the edge and she looks over, and Frost is like, "Holy shit, this lady's gonna jump off." And and she just sees this mangled body, but she doesn't see Todd. She sees her father, and she knows something isn't right. So in the book, there's this restaurant that her and her sister Pam meet up at. And her sister Pam is a hot mess express. But they have a server that takes care of them all the time named Virgil. But she had
I
asked,
love him.
oh my gosh, I love him too. I love him too. We need a whole side story about Virgil. But and actually Herb too. We'll talk about that in a minute. So she invites them both to dinner and basically confronts them and is like, "Tell me the truth. You're not telling me the truth. I remember certain
She knew
things."
the truth.
Oh yeah, she did know the truth.
She did end up remembering everything on the cliff. And so what she wanted from her sister was a confession. So
Dun
unlike
dun
she had previously
dun.
believed, her sister did come on the hike with him. And the morning that they were hiking, they did go all out on the hike together. Um, but the questions that Frankie kept remembering, she realized those questions weren't for her. Question, is it justifiable to do harm to somebody else to get what you want? I can't remember the other two, but question, are you still sleeping with Jason?
And Frankie, whenever like she was remembering that and thought it was a question to her, she's like, "How dare my father ask me that question?" Her marriage was a
Mhm.
little bit in shambles. She worked a lot. He was really bitter. He was bitter about that, bitter about her success in a lot of different areas. But he was asking this to Pam because that dirty little floozy with her roach hands all over Jason was sleeping with him.
Dude, I couldn't believe it.
Oh my God.
I was like, it makes so much sense. Because, okay, think about it. Pam had been in and out of rehab for doing drugs. And so Frankie made it a point to make sure she went to weekly meetings. And I want to know that conversation that got Jason to go with Pam to her weekly meetings. Do you think they actually went to those meetings?
Hell no.
Ooh, go you, J-Bot.
Extreme cook. Floozy. Yeah, she was terrible. She actually pushed the dad off the cliff. And apparently Frankie couldn't handle it, and that's why she forgot the memory. But she basically kicked her sister to the curb, kicked Jason to the curb, was like, "Get your shit out of my house. Bye." But the part that gets me is that when Frost meets up with her after the fact, he asked her if they confessed, and she said no.
Yeah,
What did you guys think about that?
that's so hard. That's so hard because Frankie has already helped her sister. She lives with her rent free. She and it's just so frustrating. But I only have a half sister who's a lot younger than me, so I don't really know that relationship. Even though they were on good terms with each other, they both admit that they had their faults growing up. That they both wanted to be a unit, but neither of them really allowed for it. And so it always created that barrier. So, AJ, I know you have a few sisters. What do you think?
Loyalty only goes so far for me. Um, if you do something wrong, you do something wrong. Murder is kind of like a line you don't cross.
And
um,
murdering your father is kind of
exactly, exactly. So I mean, at the end of the book, Todd Ferris is dead. Darian Newman, who is an actual real life fucking monster, he is dead. Pam and Jason get to go off and do their own thing. So, chat, my question to you guys, what do you think Frankie's going to do next? What do you think is next for Frankie? I mean, we obviously would have to just use our imagination. There isn't like a spin-off story about her. And to be honest, I wouldn't read it because I didn't like her as a character. But what do you think? Puzzled. What do you think she wanted to do? Start her new life.
she talked about going over. She talked about going abroad, and working at a college that had previously extended her offers. And honestly, I hope she does go to do that. Even though I don't have sisters, I kind of understand why she would want to just let them go, because think about if she had told Frost, then they would be arrested, they would be taken to court, they would be tried. It would turn on to this lengthy process and would keep Frankie in both Pam and Jason's lives. Whereas if she said no, they didn't confess, she can just move on. She can just drop them and be done, and grow in her life and basically make a fresh start. And I'm kind of proud of her for making that choice, honestly.
It's an interesting take.
Chat, what do y'all got to
I'm
say?
like, no, you fucking crossed the line. You're cut the fuck off. Fuck you.
But I think the last question we had was if Frankie will ever have a relationship with her sister again. Um, and I don't think so, or at least I hope not.
I hope not. I think memory is so invaluable though, because like no one knows for sure what would happen, right? Like, they can deny that she went under her own treatment. So Peach said, I would demand half the inheritance and kicked him out. J-Bot says, I feel like she would have gone to teach too. I think part of it she was done with the media circus too. That's a good point,
Yes,
J-Bot.
because between her practice, between the murder trial with Darren Newman, between her patients getting killed, Frankie's face is well known at this point, both in San Francisco and in all, the big scientific communities. Asshole tax. But Pam already went through her inheritance pretty much the way she was shopping. Like, damn.
Oh, God. All right, guys. So, what did you think about the book overall? Would you continue reading the next two books in the Easton series? And if you could change one detail about the book, what would you change?
Um, I think I would read the next two series. Good.
Until it turned out to be Todd.
God.
J-Bot, tell us about that. Who would you want to see? Did you want Jason and Pam to be the culprits? Honestly, I don't think Pam is that smart. She tested Frankie at every step of the way, like trying to get her to remember things to see if what she did was actually true.
Yeah.
Describe Frost more. Yeah, I mean, I caught the Justin Timberlake references and like, there's like some blue eye comments in the next couple books. Um, I would like you really get to know who he is, like his brother too. Like his brother is a small character in the book, Duane, and he's a chef and he leaves him food. One side story. That's why Pam was the perfect killer because nobody suspected her. I get it, crazy. Let's talk about the small characters in the book. So, Shaq.
I love Shaq. I want to read the books just to see more of Shaq. um, so Shaq is actually a feline character. Um, he was introduced to Frost through his previous owner's homicide, murder. Frost comes to the scene. Nobody is allowed to touch the owner's body because Shaq is laying on top of it and he is defending it. And first of all, that is the sweetest thing for a cat.
That's real dog-like tendencies. And he's this sweet little tuxedo cat. And you guys, I have such an affinity with tuxedo cats because I had a tuxedo kitty named Yoda and he passed away a couple years ago. So like anytime I see a tuxedo cat, I'm like, oh, I want him so bad. And Shaq
Mm.
goes and, with him while he's patrolling or doing something. He has like a carrier. People at restaurants know this cat. And the cat is the owner of this lady's estate, and Frost gets to live with Shaq in this big fucking mansion.
So at the crime scene, Frost goes up to Shaq and he talks to him. He finally coaxes him off the owner's body. And at that point, that's when Shaq adopts Frost, pretty much. And so Frost goes to the estate people and they're like, hey, I just want to go ahead and take this cat. I want to take care of him. And the estate people get like really suspicious. They're like, do you know anything about what's going on with the estate and the will? And Frost is like, no, I just want this cat. We'll come to find out the mistress actually wrote it into her will that if should anything happen to her, whoever takes care of Shaq will get to live in her uphill good side townhouse for just like $1 a month, which is astounding. And so Frost does live there, but one thing we notice is that he never really claims ownership of the house. He always does say it's Shaq's house, and he sleeps on the couch, which is the one thing that is his. And so I don't know. I kind of wish that Frost would not step into that role a little bit more, but I think he's protecting himself.
That's true. But also, I think that Frost, he's a hard worker and he worked for everything that he has. So I think that he's honorable. Like he's described a lot in the books as a Boy Scout. So I think he's just like, one, I don't want to be in the main bedroom because there's a stain, on the floor that was blood.
I thought that
And
was in the
two,
living room.
it was in no, I thought it was the bedroom. And
They
his couch was the only thing that was his. So I think that's probably where he, got it. Plus, he didn't really take care of himself, and he worked a lot. He never had food in his fridge. His brother, who was a chef, would drop off things for him to make sure that he had a good meal. And I think that Frost just, he was all about the job. He wasn't really putting himself first at this point.
Yeah. Um, so I actually have one of our favorite questions.
Yes.
If this were turned into a movie, who would you cast?
Okay. For Frost, David Tennant as Frost. Mm,
Ooh,
oh, you got Keelan's interest.
eh.
I was thinking like someone, not like Chris Hemsworth, but like someone who kind of looks like him. Like, not him in particular, but someone who has like not sex appeal, but they have that good old boy appeal. Does that make sense?
Think. That's what kind of get me. He kept giving me like the Justin Timberlake vibe, and I'm like, okay. And I'm trying to think of. I couldn't really put a face for Frost for me, but for Lucy, I think Zoe Kravitz would do really well,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Who do you guys think? Chris Pratt, Peach? I can kind of see that. Um,
Yeah.
Chris Pratt, what's his name in Parks and Rec? FBI. Oh gosh, it's gonna bother me now.
Oh, special agent,
Burke Matlin. Got
Burt Matlin.
it. Nailed it. Thanks, Extreme. Post what you are, what you think in the Star Wars channel in the Discord. I don't really know. I don't know for Frost yet. I'm gonna have to come back on that one. But Lucy, I definitely see that. For Frankie, I kind of see like Hillary Swank.
Ooh, she's good at calculating characters.
Hmm.
Like, what was the one we just watched?
Away,
The space one. Away. Yeah.
I can see her being Dr. Stein.
I think. Who else?
Jason Bateman for Jason. Oh my God, Peach. Yes.
Oh, I'd love to hear him here do a British accent too. I kept forgetting he was British until I listened to the audiobook and they did the British accent for him. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing. Um, ooh, what about Jennifer Aniston? She'd be in the same age range.
For Pam?
No, for Frankie. See
Mm,
her play a serious role?
I don't know. I don't think I see her as Frankie.
Right.
Because the way
I Googled.
looking at like build wise, like the ways they describe Frankie is like, Pam is very voluptuous while she's like, a little bit more her body's smaller. And
Willowy.
yeah, willowy. Like her body's smaller. So I would see somebody with a very small stature.
Yeah. Amy Wong. She has a small stature. Woo. Amy Woo.
Ali
Amy Wong.
Wong.
Ali Wong. Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
I love her, by the way, especially in Always Be My Maybe. All right. So I think that concludes book club. I
Covered everything.
Oh my gosh, we covered everything. So, what book are we reading next?
So I'm super excited about this one. I read it a while back. It is called A Simple Favor by can't believe I don't have Darcy Bell. Um it was described on Twitter. Let me see if I can pull this back up. It was described on Twitter as one of the most fun, dark comedy mystery thrillers that they had seen in a long time. Some people may recognize this title as a movie that is actually on Hulu, starring Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively.
All right. I'm
Um,
excited about this.
it is about this woman who has moved to this town. She is a single mother, and she ends up befriending another mother, and their sons have grown close. Lively for Pam. Pam needs more curves, and maybe Blake Lively for Frankie. See that.
I can kind of, I mean, like,
um,
think about Gossip Girl real quick. Sorry, sidebar. Think
no,
about
no,
Gossip
was
Girl real
there.
quick. Like, like she just carries herself that way as Serena and Gossip Girl. So maybe she's not as like curvy in like the hip area. I think that she could pull off Pam very well. I would agree.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're getting at. Very disgruntled. Yeah, I see it.
Mhm. Anyway, going back to Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick movie.
So these two girls kind of become friends, and they always end up kind of doing favors for each other, picking up the boys from school or running errands, watching them. And one day, Blake Lively's character asks Anna Kendrick's to pick her son up from school. Not a problem. But as the day goes on, she never hears from her. And then it turns out her character is missing.
Dun
Dun,
dun
dun,
dun.
dun.
We didn't plan that, by the way. It just happened organically. So I'm excited. So there's a movie and a book. So if you are not a big reader, definitely watch the movie or listen to an audio version of the book. But we will be back next month with some other, or our thoughts about this next book. So make sure you join our Discord so we can talk about discussion topics, and we'll be super excited to see you there. Keelan, do you want to talk about Watch Party one more time?
Yes. So for those of you who were not with us when we first started, we will be having a community watch party Thursday the 19th at 7 o'clock. We will be watching Labyrinth with David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly. So I'm really excited to remind you all of the Babe or introduce you to the Babe.
Yeah.
Check out our Discord. We will be having it in there. The movie will be playing in a video channel or a voice channel, and we will be chatting in a text channel throughout it. There's even a drinking game in the text channel, which is pretty funny.
They're good
Basically,
roles.
you take a drink anytime you see David Bowie's bulge. Eh. But I'm super excited to watch this because this movie was just a huge part of my childhood. Um, every time they talk about a remake or something, I'm always on edge about it because I love to see something older become new again, but at the same time, we're always partial to the OGs.
Yep, for sure. Stay tuned with the official Millennials channel. On Monday, we're going to stream Naked Pod. On Wednesday, our amazing Circle of Jerks, Peach C and Crazy Evie, will be streaming then. So we're super excited to see them, and then watch party right after that. So yeah, keep in touch with us, follow us, sub. The slappening is still on the table. If we get up to 50 subs by the end of November, Peach gets a slap by none other than your girl, NJ.
Woo-hoo.
That being said, hang tight, guys. Let's raid somebody. Um, do you have any suggestions? I see Stevia and Mad Cat are on. There's someone on here, Han Jabba's. They only have 3 viewers.
I've got Night Garriant, yeah, and Stevo and Mad Cat. So, do we want to watch Fortnite or do we want to watch Doom Eternal, guys?
Neither. Just kidding. JK. 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 Let's give Stevia and Mad Cat a raid. I can't hear you, Keelan.
So,
There you go.
no,
There you go.
that's weird. Yeah, Stevo and Mad Cat works.
All right. Peach, remind me, is it backslashy and then raid and then at their username? Puzzle, do you remember?
I have no idea.
All right, what's the worst that's gonna happen? Oh, okay, we're good. We're good. We are good.
Hey, Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Oh,
Thanks for
or
joining.